Ali, 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 yeah. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. Islamism without the schism. Want to rise upon the 7 and give all praises to the great God, Allah, Father God, Allah, and honors to His holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. Give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything, and I do mean everything, that our holy prophet and the ancestors brought to make us a nation. I want to give honors to our family. You know, it's been a minute since we had a late night library session, and we ain't been back in our particular measure dealing with God, man, the word made flesh just yet. We're going to get back to that. But I had a matter that was really sitting, you know, on my tassel. You know, it was weighing down on my tassel a little bit. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to bring this in special measure to the manifest to bring some clarity, because it's been a lot of argument about, you know, science as it relates to religious belief, and religious belief as it relates to science, and how they are uncompatible. And, you know, it's a whole bunch going on, you know, and our community is divided over this particular issue. So I decided to come forth and bring our people some clarity, because me personally, in my walk of life, I've been able to see that I can honor both of them and not feel slighted by one or the other. I want to give honors to our brother Yaqub El Gamble Bay. Hopefully, brother, you know, everything is well on your end. We had an angel that's supposed to be reaching out to you, if he ain't reached out to you already. So praise be to Allah, Islamism without the schism. So dealing with this particular drawing family, honors to you, Charles Warrior. This is going to be a good one here, family. You know, and what I'm going to do too, just on the strength, early on, I'm going to drop this link in here. You know, for anybody that want to come in here, anybody welcome to come in here. This ain't a platform where you get crazy and try to control the narrative and kick people. I don't rock like that over here. You know, just cause I disagree, you disagree with, all I ask is you be respectful in your disagreeing, and we good. You know, you know, long you don't go to cussing and all that type of stuff there, all is well. You know, you can rock. But anybody want to come in here, you know, after I get done, you know, if I see you in the queue in the course of what I'm demonstrating, you know, we'll probably open up the way too. This is pretty much important. So my subject title again, family, want to make sure y'all get these likes up, man. You know, make sure you get the people to share, you know, and subscribe as you do yourself. You know, let the people know we here. We got a lot of information, man, that people have yet to see. Valuable information, family. And the only reason ain't nobody here is because our people draw off numbers they like to follow. I can care less if it's one or two people on here, no one is here. I'm going to still do my job, you know, and I'm going to give it to y'all like it is. So we want to make sure that our people get this information. We arming you over here, not harming you with the information. You know, so you be armed when you go out there to deal with some of these people that just be talking but can't back it up. The time for that is over with. As you can see right down here is my banner that's flowing across the bottom of the screen. This is a very grand aspect just to give some bite knowledge on this. This is actually a book, you know, and I'm going to go into it at the end. The Supreme Sign in the Observations of a Traveler Questioning the Universe Concerning His Maker. That's actually a book that's authored by the brother Betty Uzman, Said Nursi. You know, just to show y'all a picture of this particular one, I'm going to give y'all some insight on this. I ain't going, he got a lot of works, family. I can tell you that. You know, Betty Uzman was known as the seventh wonder of the world. He was from Turkey. This man was in prison the majority of his life because he chose to basically go against Darwinism. He seen Darwinism before it was coming, and he basically began to go wage an intellectual jihad against Darwinism. You know, and you know, all of these different sciences or whatever that people was dealing with, thinking they came by chance. Betty Uzman Said Nursi is the best to do it, family. They call him Sheikh, you know, and everything else, but he ain't never really accept them particular type of titles, you know, even though he was indeed a master Sheikh. You know, this brother was worthy of that title, but he was humble enough, you know, to the extent to where he, you know, he basically didn't care too much about titles, as we don't care too much about titles either. That's why I never get up here talking about what my title is or what position I hold and what I do. They just know me as Commission Adept. That's all they need to know. But Betty Uzman Said Nursi is an actual movie out here on his life too. You can go on YouTube and watch it. This man was so cold-blooded with it, family. Just to give you some backgrounds on it. This man, it is legend has it, this man was actually writing books because he had an extraordinary ability when it came to memory, and he could memorize whole texts. But he was literally writing out of fear that if he died in the war, because most of the people who studied under him as his students, they ended up going into a real live battle, you know, during that particular time. You know, this was the time when Russia and all them was at, you know, the Soviet Union them was at war during his particular period. But man, bro, it was said that he was literally writing a lot of these chapters on horseback while in the midst of the war, and basically explained to his followers, it was like, you know, perhaps if I die in this situation, they ain't gonna be able to get the truth. So I got to write this truth down, you know, as much as I can, you know, to get it out there to the people. That's how dedicated he was. I think they tried to poison that man like 19 times or something like that. And these were his own people that had sold out because it got so bad you couldn't read no Holy Quran. Those who know the history of Turkey know what I'm talking about right around that time. If you got caught reading it, you get killed, you get exiled, you'll get imprisoned. You couldn't even speak Arabic or none of that right there if you was dealing with Islam at that particular time, because they was actually Europeanizing that particular people. They had been infiltrated. That's when the Sultanate got overthrown over there and everything. All this stuff was by design and not by chance. So Betty Uzum Said Nursi literally lived his life in prison, and most of it was because he was trying to fight against Darwinism. He was also trying to prove that the Quran, was sound scientifically and divinely, and he did a good job. That man got like volumes of books that he wrote and left behind before he passed form. And I want to give honors to, the brother that actually taught me his teaching, because I was able to study under this brother for 10 years. Brother, let me see here. This is the master teacher from that particular area that I learned my exegesis from. And some of you already know. Let's see if I can get it up here. Yeah, there you go, right there. This good brother right here. This brother here. It's crazy because he kind of looked like Betty Uzum Said Nursi too. But this brother here, I learned a lot from this good brother, man. He's actually teaching at the palace in Saudi Arabia now. Brother Naketi Ayadeen. Professor Naketi Ayadeen. I studied under him 10 years. People already Kamisha, who you studied under, I don't be getting into all that trying to brag and boast. But this is the brother that taught me about Betty Uzum Said Nursi. And he spoke a lot on a lot of scientific, measures. That's his grand drawing. He was one of the brothers that used to tell me when the NOI and our Sunni brothers used to be going back and forth with each other because a couple of us were studying on them. And he say, it doesn't matter what this is not Islam. It doesn't matter what your school of thought is. It doesn't matter if you're Sunni. It doesn't matter if you're Shiite. It doesn't matter if you're Nation of Islam. It just matters is your relation between you and Allah. This was his approach. But that brother there was also a professor, at Florida State University, as well. He was a financial forecaster, and he took that knowledge, back to the East or whatever, and he's in the palace of Saudi Arabia now. Honors to this good brother, because he don't look like he aged a bit from where he looked the same as he looked. Brother got a good spirit too, man. He wasn't into no radicalism. He wasn't into no fanaticism. That brother knew that, but all that Kant and Aristotle, Plato, man, he could quote that stuff verbatim. You know what I mean? When it came to that, but he put their stuff up, next to Said Nursi, information. And Said Nursi, was the cream of the crop. So this brother Naketi Ayadeen right here, I studied under this brother 10 years. This is where I learned a lot of exegesis from. Exegesis means interpretation, or what we call hermeneutics. I learned hermeneutics from this brother. That's where I got that portion. And another brother that was with him, brother by the name of Walid, who was teaching at Dar Uloom in Cairo University, Islamic University. That's where I learned proper tajweed from when it comes to the Arabic. Actually, in the Egyptian Coptic language, because he was from Egypt. He was Egyptian, so he taught me the Egyptian Coptic dialect. I don't go into that all the time because I don't feel like it's necessary. But anyway, honors to the brother Naketi Ayadeen. He's still out here teaching. I'm watching him from a distance, and I'm honored to have studied up under this good brother. He the one taught me again the teachings of this brother here, Betty Uzum Said Nursi. And Said Nursi was in prison right there. He reminded me of my Grand National Chairman in the Moorish American government, because Um, he too had to go through Rome's dismal crypts, and he wrote the Book of Fire, the Exhuming of a Nation. Powerful measures, so a lot of my information come through, him as well, my Grand National Chairman, first and foremost. So I've been cared for by many master teachers, so to speak. And I don't discriminate between one of them, and I don't put now up against the other, because all of them gave me something, that I could utilize, and aid and assist me, and brought me grand understanding along the way. So, that's where I'm at with it. But this is like, look at this collection, family. That's like a picture they put here, and the CGI and all that right there. But family, this is literally his volumes. There you go, right there. His volumes, family, are enormous, man. That man was writing, bro. He was really writing. He wasn't playing with that pen. He was really doing it. But if you go online, the movie right there, you'll find it right there. It's called Free Man. And check it out. It's a powerful, powerful story when you get a chance to look at it. So that book, the one that I'm going to touch on, is called The Supreme Sign, that's going across the bottom of the screen. It's also called The Staff of Moses. That's what we call it, Staff of Moses. So let me pull this down right here real quick, because we finna really get into a grand drawing, family. We're going to talk about the Adam of the Scriptures. A lot of people like, what you mean, Adam of the Scriptures? You know what I mean? How in the world is going to be an Adam? And there ain't no way in the world no Adam was spoke of in the scripture, because the Adam had to come later. The scientists originated it. This is how they going to, that's what they going to come with, right? That's the narrative. I'm finna show you something, though. I'm finna teach the night. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen. Y'all know I love to keep a PowerPoint on the manifest. So let me get this thing up here for y'all. Oh, we going to make it plain tonight. So that's what we coming with right there. The Adam of the Scriptures, science or pseudoscience fiction. Is there a time that the Adam has ever been mentioned in the Bible and the Quran? And if it has been mentioned in the Bible and the Quran, then was it dealing with any aspect of what we would call, creation? Was it relating to creation? Or was it relating to the atom in general? Is there fine detail in these special matters? Oh, we finna get into it. We gonna get into it. Remember, the subject title is The Adam of the Scriptures, Science or Pseudoscience Fiction. Because a lot of time when you go to talking about, what is dealing with religion or scripture, they say, you can't even compare that to science. That's pseudo already. You trying to make that this, what we gonna let you see when we get done putting this evidence out here. And we gonna put this to rest in this particular measure. At least those who see it now, you gonna have some clarity when we get done. So let me go here first, because I want to lay my premise. Because most people don't even know when science became science, or when science came into being, or who came forth with science. Science actually began with creation, if you ask me, but that's a whole nother level. We're going to get into some actual documented fact, and y'all can Google this, look it up, while I'm going through it. This one point here we want to make. When was science first invented? But they'll tell you, according to their timeline, 1200 BCE, right? And it tell you that the earliest roots of science can be traced to ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia around 3000 to 1200 BCE. So, I mean, now if you got common sense, you already know that these people were demonstrating science. Now, some of our people get it twisted because they equate science with modern technology as it had advanced. But what we are dealing with as modern technology, as we see it now, there were more underdeveloped forms of that during those times. And you can look around and see tools and, building apparatuses and, things that they used during that time. We just became more refined and we used the same. So it was still dealing with a science back then, even though their tools are now considered obsolete or outdated. Just because something's obsolete or outdated, it was still able to be used in order to bring about, mechanics in something that was being constructed. So, and that had to come through observation. That had to come through brainstorming, really contemplating, on some light bulb coming on in somebody's head, saying, look at what I found. Oh, look at what I can see around. That was being done back then, family. So if you want to know when science was first invented, Einstein is one of the most known in this particular time that we know of to get into the physics of the things. It was a couple of more of them out there too, dealing with the chemistry. John Dalton, everybody know who that is. But when you go back to the ancient time, a lot of these principles the ancestors definitely had a knowledge of, family. A lot of these scriptures, a lot of people gonna be mad. They gonna try to deny it, but they can't deny records and documents. Because one thing we have to realize is when you deal with anthropology, archaeology, papyrology, whatever you want to call it, the preservation of scrolls and so forth and so on, and they carbon date the scrolls to a certain period, and they go back to a certain time period. If them scrolls, are accepted as science, just dealing with the dating of the scroll itself. So we have to understand there's different branches of science, you see? And so we're going to get a little further into this. So anyway, all of us know this common sense. This ain't nothing nobody really don't know. It may be some people don't know it, but science first came into being during the time of ancient civilizations. This is why I always tell you, just dealing with the hieroglyphics themselves, even though a lot of people like to look at them as alphabets, you already know I deal with the metaphysics of it because I'm dealing with science. Because I'm telling you, they represent science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. How? All you got to do is look at what's being depicted in them symbols. And you look on the wall most of the time, you seeing people. You seeing people work with tools. You seeing people building structures. You looking at creation. You looking at animals, whether they are, mammals or whatever, you can go into every aquatic, reptilian. It's all there. In the anaglyphs that they like to call hieroglyphs, we call metal, however you want to put it. But science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is depicted in a lot of the ancient civilization right there on the wall. They demonstrating it, family. So let's not be crazy about it. So that's an archaeological point right there. Nobody can deny that. You're a fool if you deny that them people in their time, though they may have been dealing with a little more primitive in what they was dealing with, and even though they may have been dealing with things primitive, we can't even really say they was less advanced in some cases because some of the mathematical, acrobats, so to speak, that they was demonstrating when it come to them pyramids, family, and all of the structures and the alignment that they still can't figure out right now. That baffles modern scientists. I mean, scientists will tell you that a spider spin his web a certain type of way, but they can't tell you the actual mechanics, on how, it is that this spider has this in his essence. You see, they may tell you, well, he did it this way, he threaded it, and we can go into a whole bunch of other things. But so science is still a little behind. And then they'll tell you over here in the West that science is meant to be debunked. this is why I always say this is crazy. If it's meant to be debunked, then it's not absolute. It's ever changing. You see what I'm saying? So the truth is the only thing that changes, not though. That's the only thing absolute. The truth is the truth, regardless, whether you accept it or reject it. So everything that I'm getting ready to present right now, whether if you accept it, thrice blessed to you. You know what I mean? If you reject it, that's on you. You know what I mean? But just because you reject it, don't make it wrong. So what I'm gonna do, let me see. I'm gonna check my board real quick. Make sure I want to engage my audience. Okay. Yeah, I want to engage my audience and make sure I tap in with y'all while I'm doing this. So I can see if y'all making comments or somebody in the queue trying to get up in this piece. So let me go back. So anyway, now that we have the definition, dealing with science, I hope y'all went to look this up, but don't get so caught up in this this other stuff go over your head. But yes, if you look it up, you're going to see that in most cases, science go way back, during that particular time. And I can go into other areas where the so-called Greeks, came up with their so-called measures, and all that, but that ain't necessary here. We just want to let you know how far science go back. And so now that we do this, we're going to go into the definition. We've been through this with some of our family, but some of our family may not know this. So let's look up the word science by its root. You can look this up yourself too. And I go deep when I don't just choose any definition. When I dig for the truth. So here, in this particular definition here, science is from the mid 14th century, a state of fact of knowing what is known, knowledge of something acquired by study. Let's just get that understood. So it don't matter what you study, but if you can state a fact, if you can come into knowing of something, because I always tell people knowledge means to know and know means to apply. So if you can't make something applicable to yourself, then you can't bring it up into a refined science, so to speak. You see, it got to be applicable. You got to be able to make it applicable or find some application in it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to demonstrate some applied science tonight, so to speak, without going through all of the physics, with glass beakers and all that. We ain't dealing with none of that over here. So don't say you gonna say you gonna apply it. No, we ain't talking about like that. We ain't trying to whip nothing up over here. So acquired by study, information, also assurance of knowledge, certitude, certainty, right? Europeans say they certain in a lot of things, but yet the things they say they certain in, they end up having to come back and recant later. They say it's absolute. I don't know about y'all, but if somebody keep telling me one thing and then they basically, remixing their truth over and over, I'm gonna start questioning, what it is that they demonstrate, because you saying one thing and you saying it, and then now you got a whole nother methodology, then you come up with another methodology after that. Man, I can't find no foundation in that. So we ain't even finna waste no time with that. So, but they do that. They say science is meant to be debunked in the Western world. Make it make sense, people. Sound like an oxymoron to me. I'm just saying. So it says also assurance of knowledge, certitude, certainty. It says from old French science, knowledge, learning, application, corpus of human knowledge. 12th century from Latin, science, scientia, which means knowledge, knowing, expertness. What? Science. A science, which is scientist, intelligent, skilled. Remind me of the word adept. Present participle of siri, to know. Then it says the original notion in the Latin verb probably is to separate one thing from another, to distinguish or else or incise. That's funny because I know one of the words in the Arabic for the Quran, one of the names, because the Quran actually has attributes. And one of the Quran, like al-Kitab, but one of them is actually al-Furqan, which is actually the same root that the name Farrakhan came from, in the Nation of Islam, the brother that, is currently leading the nation at the time. But it means to discriminate, not in the racist aspect, so to speak, but to discern. It's dealing with discernment. So they're telling us here that science has to do with being able to separate something from another, to distinguish or to discern, right? Only way you can do that is by observation. You got to observe what it is you're looking at. And then once you observe what it is you're looking at, then you can come to a clear and concise conception of what it is you demonstrate, or even come up with a methodology, or what they like to call a scientific model to support, what it is you demonstrate. And, anything that is being demonstrated under a model that is not yet proven is always referred to as scientific theory, and it goes beyond theory when you prove that it's the truth. You see, so we had a lot of people that's around here being theoretical, when it comes to dealing with science in the scripture, but we going to demonstrate tonight, and we going to remove all doubt for those who are honest. Like I say, whether you accept it or reject it, that's on you. But we're going to put the truth out here. So it says the original notion of the Latin verb probably is to separate one thing from another, to distinguish, or else incise. This is related to scindere, to cut, divide, from pyrut ski, which means to cut, split, source. It says also of the Greek schism, to split, rend, cleave, skedan, which is Gothic, Old English, Seadan. You see how they dealing with all this sound shifting too, by the way, people? How the K becomes the C, and all of these words, you can see they changing. You got to learn that about etymology, but it still means to divide and separate. So this is one of the aspects of it. OED writes that the Old English Dictionary, it says, in the sense of the word, is now restricted to theology and philosophy. Okay, so in Old English, the word science in itself restricted to theology and philosophy. Theology dealing with theos, religion, the study, the logic of God. You see, that's what they're saying here, right? Look at the time, though. It's going back to the 14th century. Philosophy and theology was rooted as being science at this time. So that right there should kill the whole argument. But there was a later time where there was a separation from the theological and the philosophical view, and then they end up going into, the way that they demonstrate science now. It became a demarcation. There was a split. So it says from the late 14th century in Old English, it says as a book learning, also a particular branch of knowledge or of learning systematized knowledge regarding a particular group of objects, also skillfulness, cleverness, or craftiness from 1400 as experiential knowledge. So in other words, they experiment. They're showing you how this word took on many different forms throughout its time until it reached us now. So experiential knowledge, which is also a skill resulting from training, handcraft, or trade. People like to say I'm hands-on. That's another measure. Hands-on with it. When you become hands-on and you know what you're doing, and you're a master, you're an adept, you're a scientist at your trade. You're a jack of your trade. But anyway, it says from late 14th century, in the more specific sense of the collective human knowledge, it says especially that gained by systematic observation, experiment, and reasoning. Systematic observation, experiment, and reasoning. You see? So this is basically what science is. You see? You can observe creation. You can experiment with what you observe in creation, and you can reason with what you observe in creation. That's the real measure behind science. It becomes systematic, when you place your model on the manifest, and it becomes accepted not as a theory, but as true science, right? So the modern restricted sense of the body are regular methodological observations. It says, or propositions concerning a particular subject of speculation is attested by 1725 in the 17th, well, that's 17th century, and 18th century. And this commonly was philosophy. So again, they was really hanging on this science as being philosophy at this time. So it says the sense of non-art studies is attested in 1670s. It says the distinction is commonly understood as between theoretical truth, which is Greek episteme, right? And the methods of for effecting practical results, which is technique. It states, but science sometimes is used for practical applications and art for applications of skill. Then it says the predominant modern use, natural and physical science, generally restricted to study of the phenomena of material universe and its laws by the mid 19th century. And it's funny that in the 19th century, this is when all this stuff started changing, because it's the same thing when we deal with the language. Everybody prior to the 19th century seen the hieroglyphics as metaphysical, but when we get to Champollion in the 19th century, this is when everything changed. And the same thing we can see right here is going on when we deal with the definition of science here. While prior to that, it dealt with, theology and philosophy, observation and all that. But now it's predominantly, again, natural and physical science that's dealing with being restricted to the phenomena of the material universe and its laws. And we're going to get into that because there's some scientists that come out of the same century, Einstein being one, that had more sense than all these scientists put together now. As far as his approach when it came to dealing with divinity, God, the creator, and also, science. He was able to balance these things out. And I'm going to quote him in a minute. So let me see before I go ahead. Okay, yeah, we got our family still on the manifest. I'm just checking to see if anybody trying to get in there. I don't want to have nobody waiting in the back. So I want to go here. Now that I gave you the English definition of the word, I'm dealing with Hebrew or Aramaic right now. And this particular word is very important. As you'll see, it says, as other respondents have written, the word meaning of olam depends on the context. It can mean world, eternity, or even universe, or Ribion Halam, which means the sovereign of the universe. The word olam, that's O-L-A-M, which is also synonymous with the Arabic word, ilm, which is I-L-M. Or sometimes you hear the term ulama. Ulama represents, pretty much the scientists of the Islamic community. So this word ulama in Arabic, ilm, which deals with knowledge, those who are knowledgeable, it also corresponds with this Aramaic and Hebrew word, and it shouldn't surprise you because, these are supposed to be, relatives according to, scriptural doctrine to those who know of that. So anyway, it says the word olam, it says it comes from the root ayin, but that's A. So the A is interchangeable with the letter O. It's just a vowel. Also, it's used as a consonant, but, A is interchangeable with O when they deal with their little transliterations. They do that. Sometimes you may see U or I as well. But it says it's from the root ayin, lam, and mem. So that would be ALM, even though they spelling it OLM. But it says in the Hebrew, notice they see the root here is LM, but then you'll see the whole thing here as well. It says it means hidden, secret world, ancient, forever. This is the definition. In other words, this is being able to tap into the secrets, the secret knowledge behind creation. That's what scientists do. They observe creation. They go into, like for example, John Dalton, he didn't really know, actually that atoms exist as they was. He had to deal with some testing. And he still didn't really perfect it. People later on recently really perfected the science, to say, okay, yeah, this one was on point in what he said. And that's how it go in most situation with the science stuff. Somebody go to looking at something or trying to peer into the secrets of creation, the things that go beyond the unseen, because an atom cannot be seen with the naked eye. And even under certain microscopes, it's a special type of microscope that is needed in order for you to see that. But that too had to be figured out. And most of these things are stumbled upon, and I won't say they by chance, because by them being able to come into insight of these things is what allowed us to be able to advance to what we at now. So there was some intelligent design involved with that, though a lot of our people don't want to admit it, that call themselves materially science. So in Ugaritic, the same root of the word also means to be hidden, unknown, unnoticed, eternity, perpetuity. Ugaritic is a language similar to Canaanite / Hebrew. Like Hebrew, it is a Northwest Semitic language. In Arabic, again, I spoke on that earlier. It means the same thing: known, to know, to be aware, to discern, to perceive, to distinguish, world, universe, worldly, lay, secular, characteristic, token, a sign, a distinguished person. Arabic is a Central Semitic language. Then it goes on, essentially, the Hebrew Ugaritic meaning of this root is what is unknown, and the Arabic meaning of this root is what is known. It says, how is this possible? The root LM evolved and developed from the root LM, which means to bind and tie together. It ain't strange, because even when you look up the word, when they talk about religion, religion, it actually means to bind and tie together too, right? Whereas the other had to do with separation, and so forth and so on. So the original science, if we go into the aspects of dealing with knowledge when it relates to scripture, means to bring together as opposed to separate, like the Greeks and the other freaks like to claim. But it says the differences between the meaning of olam with an ayin depends on one's frame of reference. If one's perspective is from within what is bound together, then you're talking about what is known as in Arabic. On the other hand, if one is looking at what is bound from without, then you are talking about what is unknown or hidden in Hebrew or Ugaritic. So you can see the change, as it results from the jumping in the language. And that's just the way it goes a lot of time when you deal with language. Here's another measure dealing with olam. Olam is best based in the root word, dealing with the OLM, which is also ALM. You can look at it like you want to. It may change into olam, meaning world, olam meaning eternity, or alim, meaning disappear or hidden. So they're talking about the hidden and the manifest right there. But anyway, it says the word olam, pronounced olam, is the word for world. So we're talking about the observation of the world, the knowledge of the world, the hidden knowledge of the world. You see? The knowledge, hidden knowledge that is concealed from the naked eye. That's why you have to observe to get scientific with it. See, it's making sense now, right? But we're going to go deeper into this. It says, my understanding is that in order for there to be a creation of a world, there had to be a concealment of the infinite light of God, or else the world wouldn't appear to be a separate existence. Thus, the root for ha'olam, the world, is hilam, which means concealment. So the hidden coming into the manifest. In the Arabic, like they say, the zahir in the bati, the hidden in the manifest. You see, but anyway, it says the creation of the realm that we live in, which is the lowest physical world, involves countless levels of concealment. And that's facts, family. There are layers and layers of concealment within the cosmos, within the aquatic world, the ocean, in the seabed and so forth. There are many things, that we look at with the naked eye. Some of them we've seen, we're familiar with. There are things that are now coming into existence that we are not familiar with. This lets us know that beyond what we can see, that there is life still thriving, because we are seeing new stars and new constellations coming into being, so to speak, in the heavens. Or if we're looking at life forms that we never seen coming out of the water, this is the hidden becoming manifest. It's just like planting a seed. If I were to plant a seed right now, you didn't know it was apple or orange seed. You can only guess, if you were looking at me from a distance, at what I was planting, until that seed come up through the soil, and then you can say, the hidden has now become manifest. The word in ancient Kemet, for example, dealing with the hidden and the manifest, Amen is the hidden. Ra is what manifested out of Amen, for example. So Amen Ra. We're going to get into some of that too, as we go into our measure. So this is the definition dealing with this special aspect of this word. But anyway, it goes on to say, our job with Olam, the world, is to reveal the true reality that within this concealment is the creator, and that each person who is a microcosm, a complete miniature world, Olam themselves. See, all this going to come to play in everything that I'm bringing forth in this scientific drawing that I'm finna get into. It says it exists to serve the creator by making this lowest world the dwelling that it was made to be by way of mankind's service and living according to God's rules. So you are the microcosm of the macrocosm, family. Now we look at us based upon what we at. We look at a lot of mass in this body. This body made up of cells. But what if this whole globe that we looking at right now, that we are a part of, that we are upon, that we call the earth, what if this globe is atomic in form compared to greater beings than us? Think about it like that. Like, we think that we thriving, in a massive environment, but in all actuality, just as you go into the cellular realm, or you get into the level of dealing with bacteria, and larvae, and protoplasts and minerals and so forth, and they thriving at that realm, I'm pretty sure those organisms, in different measures of expression, so to speak, they are great and large in their own capacity. They don't have the intelligence, as we do, but they have some intelligence in them because they act intelligently in carrying out whatever purpose they carry out. Cells, I'm talking about, and this is powerful. But I'm just saying, what if we, though we think that we are so great, that there are beings greater than us, which we know they are, but to them, we look no different than bacteria. We look no different, than an atom or the nucleus of it. Well, break it down, a quark, in the eyes of the being that is greater than us. I'm just giving you a thought pattern, just something to think of. This is a powerful measure right here. So we're going to get into this microcosm and macrocosm as it relates to the atom by the time we get to the end of this. But I'm going to go to my next definition, because we're getting ready to get down to the nitty gritty in a minute. So here we have it. The religious study of Islam through Islamic sciences like Quranic exegesis. You heard me say that earlier. Hadith studies. You know, there's a science when you deal with hadith. A lot of people don't know that. Or interpretation of Quran. And a lot of people that's been studying Islam over here in the West don't even know that. They think they know the Quran, but they don't know the sciences. See, through the grace of Allah, I've been able to study the actual sciences. So if I talk to them about, you know, ijma, qiyas, you know, and all these different types, they don't know what I'm talking about. If I talk to them about tajweed, you know, what are sound sources in hadith, they don't know that. If they just know the 5 pillars of Islam and the 7 articles, and you know, that's what they teach the average person. But they don't teach you that real going in depth aspect that what I just mentioned in. But you know, that's something that we all have to go into for ourselves if we choose to go there. But anyway, it says it said this is called the science of religion. It says al-alim al-dini. Notice the word ilm. See, that's olam, you know, that we were speaking of earlier. You see, it's replaced with the I in the Arabic, ilm, ilm. In fact, when the Knights Templar was being accused by the Pope, you know, as worshiping what they call Baphomet, and they said that was a corrupt form of the name Muhammad. In other words, they was trying to say some of the Knights Templars had converted to Islam, and so that's why it's a war to this day between the Jesuits, you know, or the Roman Catholics, and you know, the Masonic demonstration behind closed doors, because it is said that they crucified, you know, they last 22nd and last night, which was Jacques de Molay. You know, and there's some history on it. You go read the book Second Messiah, you'll find out exactly what I'm talking about. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. You know, it goes into a lot of that there, you know, so far where they even tried to forge a shroud of Turin and say that was Jesus, but those who really know that's Jacques de Molay that they had put on the stake. You know, actually they had him up there to crucify, took him down, put it over his body. His impression was left on the shroud, and they've been pushing it as if it was Jesus, you know, ever since. You know, see, that's an inside secret a lot of people don't know, but we're going to give you the truth over here. But they burned him at the stake when it was said and done. And it was said that he said that the popes and everybody that was involved in his death would die. And they did die. Like most of them died right behind it. Some people say, well, this was the work of the Templars, retaliating or whatever. Some people say, oh, that man was prophesizing against y'all. And then, you know, it came back to get you. Karma came to, you know, you got met. Bad news beat you home, basically. But basically, a lot of them passed for him, like he said, and that's why the author of that book labeled that book the Second Messiah. But that's a whole nother measure. But there was a time when the Knights Templar went up under the tree with the Muslims, and they called it the splitting of the ilm, the splitting of the knowledge. You see, and this is why the Pope believed that, you know, they was basically turncoat. And that's why even when you get into the secret society and you go into Masonry, that's why the Knights Templars have first deal. When you go up to the 14th degree, they can go straight there into the shrine. Where everybody else in the Scottish Rite, they go through the 33rd. You know what I mean? But that's a whole nother measure. I'm just giving you some history behind this word ilm. Ilm not only means water, knowledge, but it means water as well. You know, Prophet Noble Drew Ali tell the Moors to keep their hearts and minds pure with, pure with love, and their bodies clean with water. You know, and a lot of times we say, okay, well, this is drinking good water. This is washing the body with water. But in the sense of ilm, or ilm, meaning knowledge, and we know in the teachings of Islam, it is taught that Islam is a vast ocean of knowledge. Then you keep your body clean with that knowledge. Keep your heart and your mind clean with the knowledge. So when they be making wudu before prayer and all that right there, you know, there's a spiritual significance to wudu. You know, so you can wash your heart and mind with this knowledge of the truth that we putting out here right now. That's what we trying to do. We want you to empty your cup want to put some clean water in that cup. Get that dirty water up out that glass. You feel me? Oh yeah, we're going to give it to you tonight, family. So using the same word for science as the science of nature, according to Hans Weir Dictionary of Arabic, while ilm is defined as knowledge, learning, lore, and the word for science is the plural form ulum. Remember, I was mentioning that earlier when I was talking about ulum and uluma. So the plural form is ulum, which is close to ulam in the Hebrew, in the Aramaic that I was showing you. You know, so it says, so for example, Kulliyat al-Ulum, which deals with the faculty of the science of the Egyptian university, is literally the faculty of sciences in plural. You know, so it's many sciences that's being taught in that particular university. But that's just being given an example for the word, again, science. And I gave it to you in both the Arabic and the Hebrew. You see? So let me go further. Oh, we finna get into it now, family. This is my last measure I want to give you dealing with science. I want to get into a little gematria with you and show you how powerful this gematria is. Because I did the gematria on it, you know, letter for letter, you know, the A, you know, in representation of the number 1 to 3. I mean, the L dealing with 30, and then the M dealing with 40. And you add them together, you get 71. You know, and so what I did, you know, because this is what you do once you add them together. You get your gematria, you add them together, then you add what's left together if it's 2 numbers. If it's a single number, then you just take your word from that and all as well. So when I added it together, you know, I came up with the number 8. 7 and 1 is 8. And so this brings us to the alphabet, which is ket. Sometimes some people would say het, but ket. You see, which is when you put that in between what's already there, it gives me this, ALCH and M. So just doing that gematria, it brought up the word alchemy, because we know Y is interchangeable with the letter I if we were dealing with a vowel. So we looking at it, we see alchemy is what we see there. That's the knowledge of the world. So when you get into alchemy, you talking about the chemistry of mortal life. That's what we call it in our Moorish Holy Quran. The chemistry of mortal life. The word alchemy itself, we know it comes through the name Kimi or Kemet. You see, I got a book up here too called Alchemy. And it's actually dealing with the mystical teachings of Islam. It's called Alchemy. It got Tehudi on the front page. I'm gonna show y'all that book too. So you can buy it on your own if you don't have it. Very powerful book. Is dealing with alchemy, teaching you how to turn your base nature, this human body, you know, into a spiritual body. Because that's what real alchemy is. All right, see if I put the wrong thing there. Alchemy. And let me pull this up. Let's see. It is right there. This book right here. It's a good book, family. Put it in your archive. Alchemia. The mystical Islamic essence of the sacred art of alchemy. So, anyway, dealing with this gematria. Now, no, I just did the math on the word, family. Let me make sure too. That's right. Alchem. That's right. Alchem. And so it ain't strange. I want to make sure that I'm sharing this thing, my entire screen too. Sometimes I think I be sharing my entire screen and I don't be sharing it. And y'all have to remind me every now and then. So again, I'm gonna pull this up again here. It's only $12 too. This book is a 5 book right here. It got a lot of information in it. It talks about you know, a whole bunch of measures. I could pull it down right now, but I don't want to sidetrack from my measure. I want to stay to the task so we can really get into it. But get that book, if you don't have it. Powerful book in reference to the subject matter. So, again, remember, I started with the 3 letters, A, L, and M. All I did is I added them together. I got 71. 7 plus 1 is 8. And I added the C and the H there because, it made sense. And so this is where we get alchemy. And this would be definitely relative because we're dealing with the knowledge of the world. We're talking about science, the observation of creation. And here it is, right? Science, the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. The world of science and technology. See, all that's dealing with alchemy, family. You see? But we can't forget science also meant philosophy and theology before it became solely known as science dealing with, the material realm only, material phenomena only. You see? So in this particular science, though, of observation, we find that math, is a part of it, mathematical physics, physics in general, ontology. All of these things equate to dealing with, being able to test the theory, being able to come up with a working model. You can use all these measures. I did it right now just with the geometry. And math is said to always be right and accurate. You see what I'm saying? So that's a powerful measure in and of itself. So this is what we're getting at when we talk about science. You got to be able to see it from every level, family. From the mathematical, the physics level, the ontology, all of that. You got to be able to see every aspect of it. Because if you limit yourself, to just one portion, then you become a sophomaniac. And that's what we have among us a lot in our community. We have, extreme sophomaniacs. And I told you what a sophomaniac is. That's somebody that has a delusion of supreme intelligence, especially when they get mono with it, and become a sophomaniac. Now you think that the only subject you study, that's what it is. You don't want to hear nothing else outside of that. It's scientific literacy. I don't want to hear nothing else outside. You sound like a fool, because you're putting yourself in a box. You can't grow like that, and that's why I have a balance. I'm neither extreme this nor extreme that. I can honor what it is that I stand on and what I believe in, and what I subscribe to, and also honor science at the same time. I can do that. They really not rivals to each other. And we know that from the man himself. Listen to what Einstein said. He one of the greatest to do with, the physics in this modern time, so they say, right? Now we got Neil deGrasse Tyson. We're going to get into him and one of his quotes later, but we're going to start with Einstein since everybody love him. He says science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. I should just shut the whole demonstration down just after that right there. That's all you need to know. The man telling you can't have one without the other. So would you discredit Einstein and say that he was pseudo because he made that statement? I'll wait. Let me take a little sip on this right here while I let that marinate. If Einstein says science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Now, you do know the terms lame and blind has a significance to him, because he come from a Jewish background. You get into the Old Testament, you lame and blind, you got some problems. That's an imperfection. You know what I mean? They even use them same measures when it comes to being initiated in a secret society. If you're lame in one area, blind, you're going to have some problem being, accepted in them secret societies. But anyway, Einstein said it. Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Y'all make sure y'all spread this quote from one of the greatest when it comes to dealing with the physics from the European standpoint that ever did it. But yet, even he, along with Tesla and the rest of them, they all know that this stuff came from our ancestors' family. They know it came out of Kemet. They know our ancestors were demonstrating it before they walked. Again now, we're going to make it make sense. We laying our foundation just like this here. So when I going into what I'm going into, it shouldn't be no questions. The only people that going to be hooping and hollering and complaining is somebody that come in after this had already been demonstrated and they hadn't heard this. But again, he says science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Is he pseudo for saying that? I'll wait, because he letting you know what his position is. He letting you know that anybody that's talking about science without having no religion involved, they lame. Anybody that's talking about religion and trying to exclude science, they blind. He ain't giving nobody no pass. Can't nobody get by. I'm going to go to the next quote Einstein said. Einstein said, I believe in God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of the universe. We're going to show you this. There it go right there. So we know this man believed in, even if they didn't call it that during that time, he definitely was a chief pusher of intelligent design. This man believed in the supreme being. Let's give you the onion right here on what he said. He said God did it, because we got a lot of people talking about God created good and evil. They quoting the scripture, he said, I create good, I make it, and this is what we have to realize. This is man's translation of what it was. That don't mean that's exactly what was expressed. That's what people have to realize. But on another level, look at what Einstein said. He said God didn't create evil. He said just as darkness is the absence of light, evil is the absence of God. Goodness gracious. Now, I ain't got no bombs and, all them type of sound effects over here. But you can imagine them. I either just put them in the chat if you want to. You know what I mean? This is a scientist talking this talk now. One that has been tried and true in what his methodology is. So is his methodology credible? Now, when I go into making my comparisons as I do. Huh? But we know a lot of people like to move the goalpost, though. Let me see if my people out there in the audience, my Moorish kin and my family that's looking, doing their thing. Okay. So, yeah, all is well. I'm going to drop this link in here one more time, too, just in case if somebody just came on, they didn't see the last one. If they want to get on, all is well. Okay. Hold on real quick, family. I got a call. Islam, Sheikh.
Islam.
Yes, sir.
Did you just call me?
No, sir, grand man. I'm live on the actually doing a class right now.
Apologize for that.
Yes, sir. No, I hadn't called you though, but all is well, grand man.
All is well, son.
Yes, sir. Gratitude.
Well. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Islamism without the schism.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
All right. I don't know. Maybe I might have been calling my sheep with this truth out the ethers, though. He might have heard me over there. Praise be to Allah. So, yeah, family. What we gonna do now? I'm finna get into it. We're gonna quote our good brother right here as we move into this. Now that we have all this foundation that we laid, let's go into this a little deeper now. Want to start with a little measure from Kemet first. And we're going to get into Bible and Quran in reference to this thing. And I'm trying to keep it moving too so it don't be long. So, but it says Amun Renef, and this is actually coming from the works of our brother Mustafa Gadala, the Egyptian alphabetical letters of the creation cycle. You know, you got to get that book if you ain't had it. I never heard of it. You know, he's a native born Egyptian. He got a lot of books dealing with the Egyptian cosmology and everything. He cold blood. I could have used a lot of his stuff, you know, but this is just one of the quotes I wanted to go into, because we want to talk about the beginning of the universe. And because, you know, most of the time in science, they'll tell you they can't go nowhere beyond the Planck epoch, which you'll see in a minute. You know, 10 point, I think 4 and 3 seconds or something like that. You know, that's the furthest they can go back when they deal with their so-called Big Bang and, you know, all of which it really wasn't a bang. Brother Mustafa Gadala talk about that as well. It was a sound. You know, the universe actually has a sound. If you go online, you can actually find videos that'll let you hear the sound of the universe, and it actually sounds like somebody meditate, like and that's why you have people demonstrating like that, because that actually deals with vibration. When you get into sacred geometry, that is. So anyway, the universe is definitely making a sound. You know, it's not an explosion, you know, like a loud explosion that was made, but a vibration. And that vibration, you know, once it started in its frequency, you know, whether you raise the octaves or lower, you know, this is harmonic frequency. They actually make shapes. You know, they bring things into form. But anyway, it says the deeply religious Egyptians, because, you know, in science, they say they can't go nowhere beyond the Planck epoch. But we're going to go a little further into the ancient scriptures, and you're going to see what they had to say about what took place before the creation and when creation came into being. It says Amun Renef, which means the undefined. That's the Kemetic word. The deeply religious Egyptian, recognizing that no human being can define the indefinable, believed in the presence of an unlimited, unknowable power that is too majestic to communicate with the created universe. But without this power, no creation can exist. Outside the universe in its cyclical nature is what the ancient Egyptians referred to as Amun Renef, which is not a name of any entity, but a sentence that means that with unknown essence. It says, in this realm of the unknowable, no words in terms of human thought could be spoken. And the deeply religious Egyptians never did. It says, so they could only be conveyed by negation of all qualities. The Egyptians would say, whose name is unknown to all Neteru, gods and goddesses, who has no definition, cannot be defined, described in any human term, who has no image, who has no form, who has no beginning and no end, etc. So now you see that those who speak in monotheistic beliefs, be it Bible or Quran, before they even thought of this or taught of this, in ancient Kemet, they was already teaching like this. You see? So Amun Renef represent, actually, if we were to go into the Islamic realm and compare it to that, it represents, you know, where it states that Allah created the 7 heavens in Surah 2. And it says he rose. They use the word istawa, which means when after he created the heavens, he rose above what he had created, so to speak, right? You know, but he had already existed prior to the creation of that. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, and that go back to the universe and the sovereign power that we was talking about with the word olam and so forth and so on. You know, the unmanifest, that which is secret, that which is hidden. So in every language, whether you deal with Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, or you deal with the Kemetic Egyptian language, all of them had particular words that they used in their own language to express the same state of being. But anyway, it says, as such, the ancient Egyptian expression Amen Renef transcends even the quality of being. Amen Renef is not the creator of or the first cause. All the terms God, creator, master, the universe, first cause, the first are lower principles and separate from Amen Renef. That's powerful. It says the Egyptians uttered no more of it. This is almost like what they try to do with the word Yod He Wav He, when they say that it wasn't supposed to be uttered. But this is a Kemetic side of that particular coin. So it says, and then only under the infinite reserve appealing always to a deep sense behind the words, that Amen Renef is everywhere in the sense, and without its superexistence, nothing could exist. So though it is the source of existence, it doesn't exist being subjugated to the realm of our existence, but it has always been. It cannot be contained in a form or image or definition. It's indefinable. So this is a principle that went across every scripture. In every particular text you can find where they speak of a supreme reality that cannot, a state of the supreme reality that cannot be explained, right? So this would go back to what they talk about dealing with their Planck epic, even when we get into what we call Zep Tepi, the time before time was. So anyway, it says, now acknowledging Amen Renef, remember Amen means hidden. It says, whose essence is unknown. It says we can enter the realms of the creation cycles of which we are a part. It says in an excerpt from the Egyptian Cosmology Animated Universe, 3rd edition by Mustafa Gadala. Okay? So, you just heard me speaking about Zep Tepi. That's actually Kemetic, which deal with the first time. And I got extensive books dealing with Zep Tepi alone, and so time itself, when it began as a result of movement. Motion makes time. Time is nothing more than one span of distance from one point to another. That's all time is. You see, Amen Renef, during that special period, time didn't exist. Zep Tepi, though it is old and very ancient according to Kemet, Zep Tepi actually represent many different calculations of cycles. Some dealing with 100,000, some dealing with 100,000 thousands, some dealing with 10,000 years, or, these are all cycles and cycle ages, But anyway, here I equated Zep Tepi with this particular measure dealing with science in Planck time. It says Planck time is the time required for light to travel the distance, it says, of the Planck length in a vacuum. See that distance from one point to another? That's time. It says, which is time, a time interval of approximately 5.39 times 10^44. They would probably say zeptoseconds. It says all scientific experiments and human experiences occur over time scales that are many orders of magnitude longer than the Planck time, making any events happening at the Planck scale undetectable with current scientific technology. As of October 2020, the smallest time interval of uncertainty in direct measurement, it says, was on the order of 247 zeptoseconds. And that's 2.47 times 10 and 19 seconds, zeptoseconds. So this is where I came back to dealing with what they're speaking as scientifically as Planck time, and being this far back, zeptoseconds, I immediately seen Zep Tepi, so to speak, because that's as far as back they can go, the Planck epic. And when you get back to that special time period, the furthest you can go back, there was a time in the universe, or in the new, as we call it in ancient Kemet, we're going to touch on that in a minute, that there was an existence where, though the potential for molecules and atoms to exist, were present, and though they may have been present in their smallest form, but inert, as some people say, they were in what would be called the ground state level of vibration. And for those who don't know what that is, in chemistry and physics, the ground state is defined as the lowest allowed energy state of an atom, molecule, or ion. In other words, the ground state represents the most stable configuration. If there's more than one possible ground state, degenerate states are said to exist. Even though the species may possess some level of energy, the ground state is considered to have 0 point energy in comparison to the other states. You see, and this is what we call inertia. This is what we call, when we speak in the book of Genesis, when it said, that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and it was void without form, and darkness was over the face of the deep. So when you deal with void, having no form, this would be in a ground state if you get into the scientific language of what the atoms would have been demonstrated, until the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So what that movement is, and we using the term God, in science they would call it the vital life force, or vital force of life, the unknown known, the unmoved mover, all them type of terminology. We call them God. Let's stop playing semantics, people. So anyway, this is a model, Giphy, that would be an example of what's going on. Like, though these elements exist, in a state of inertia, they have the potential to come into being, but until things really begin to vibrate on this level here, in this particular Giphy, everything was in a state of what they said a stable configuration. And then out of that chaos, from a 0 point state of energy, the movement of what we call God, y'all can call him whatever you want to call him in the scientific community. Once he made that movement, and it was a helaxial movement, just like the DNA, just like everything else, we know that this movement was helaxial, which is circular, just like you see it rotate, because of the sole fact that right now, if some wind was to blow, around you, in most cases, you're going to see some debris. It's going to move in a circular pattern. That's because there's an invisible grid around you that's moving in that same motion all over the place. But that's a whole nother lesson in and of itself. So this is the omnipresence of the God particle. I want to touch on the God particle real quick. I'm doing this in a chronological way to a certain extent too, as I touch on this. We're going to build all the way until we get up into the body, of man, so to speak, the human. So the God particle, for those who don't know what that is, and this was a scientific term, several physicists have written popular level books about the God particle, a label attached to the Higgs boson. That's another name, the Higgs boson. It says is a standard particle creation model. So meaning they accept the God particle as the creation model as it relates to the Higgs boson. And it will explain how most of the known fundamental particles became massive, how they grew, how they expanded. It would also explain the difference between the photon, which has no mass and mediates on the force of electromagnetism, and the W and the Z bosons, which are very massive and mediate the weak nuclear force, the force that governs radiometric decay. But then it says, while particle physicists have invented particle creation models devoid of Higgs bosons, it states the one that includes them offers the best fit with cosmological creation models. The Higgs boson garnered its popular God particle moniker because it neatly ties together our best understanding of the creation of the universe and the creation of fundamental particles. It says, this potential unification of creation models also accounts for the unprecedented expenditure of research dollars and physicists' man hours in the search for the Higgs boson, the $9 billion large hadron collider. And it represents the latest effort to discover this elusive particle. And so they use that machine basically to smash particles or atoms or molecules. And this is how they were said to discover, knowledge as it relates to, this creation, this unification creation model, dealing with the God particle. You see, so, this is powerful in and of itself. You heard me talking about the Planck epoch and all of that, and they talk about grand unification epoch here. That's an expression of the grand unification epoch. Notice the helaxial motion. Often what you will see even in supernovas, explosions and so forth that take place from that aspect, how black holes, become formed and so forth and so on. It's always dealing with some cycles and circular type things. There ain't no strange happenings when it comes to that. It also ain't strange that if you looked at a black hole and the way they depict them, they actually look the same way an atom looks under the microscope, the atomic microscopes. They look the same way as a black hole, an atom does, if you look at them. But anyway, this is actually a model here that they have. And they see that 10.43 seconds that I was mentioning about the Planck error. And they can't go nowhere before that. You see all of the little neutron, proton, electron, the neutrino, the antiprotons, the anti-neutrons, anti-electrons, and the quarks. The quarks is the smallest expression what you deal with. So you coming from here and you moving your way up. So they gave us two expressions of this model. One dealing with time since the Big Bang. So they come from the Planck era to the Gut era. Then they go into the electro weak era, the particle era. And notice there's a countdown. 43 seconds, 38 seconds, 10 seconds. This is what they saying they able to calculate as far as dealing with as far as they can go back. The era of nucleosynthesis, then going into 3 minutes, the era of nuclei, 500,000 years, and then the era of atom, 1 billion years, up to the present. The era of galaxies in the present. So this is, how they are speaking on the evolutionary process of the universe. This is their model on this side. And now they give the major events that took place since what they call the Big Bang over here. And this is dealing with elementary particles. It goes in elementary particles here. Strong force becomes distinct, perhaps causing inflation of the universe. Elementary particles, antimatter, common, electromagnetic and weak forces become distinct. They also went into, let me get this out the way real quick. Okay. Well, I can go up above it. So when we go up into this here, we're dealing with matter annihilating antimatter, protons and neutrons, electrons, neutrinos, antimatter rare. Fusion ceases. Normal matter is 75% hydrogen, 25% helium by mass. If we know anything by atom, we know heliums, are some of the smallest, large size atoms, so to speak, that it is. But then it goes on plasma of hydrogen and helium, nuclei plus electrons, and this is atoms form photons, fly free, and become a microwave background. They showing all of that there. You can see light now. starting to come into play. Atom, it says, and plasma stars begin to form, and the first galaxies form. This is the material that we are made of, family. When we talk about, stardust, we're going to get into that in a minute. When it say, man was made from the dust, he breathed into, man, the breath of life, and he became a living soul, So this is when that dust that's being spoke of. In all actuality, a lot of people like to think of this as just being the earth. But, there's a high measure when you deal with beings being created from stardust and those who are made from the physical earth. You got to remember, there were two atoms that were mentioned in the Piscean records of the Bible. And one was made on Genesis, the day dealing with the sixth day, actually, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. The other one that was made from, the stardust of what we would call flesh divine. That special one was known as Adam Kadman. Adam Kadman was made in the image of the great God. Adam Harashun, the physical Adam of Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, was made in the image of Adam Kadman. So that's how that goes. That's another measure for you if you didn't know it. So anyway, humans observe the cosmos. We get to the point where we are in the present. And so they gave you a grand model here. It was pretty cool, to have that here. But we're going to go further into this from the side of our ancestors. Let me check and make sure our family ain't trying to get in there. Okay. So they still here. I'm telling you, family, we ain't even playing over here. They think it's a game. And it's actually the carbon, that goes into the 666 too. That's a whole nother measure teaching right there. But I'm going to show you something here, because now we talking about the atom. I want to go into the models of ancient Kemet that have to do with principles that existed. And a lot of the Europeans have been confusing for years. They talk about the Neter and the Neteru. Neter is the name for the supreme reality. Neteru is the name for, the workers, the architects that are working under the supreme reality. Just as El and Elohim, in the Piscean records, the book of Genesis. El is working and Elohim is doing the work, for him. So he still get the credit though. Supreme reality still get the credit, right? So now when we come to the Neteru represent principles. These are not merely some idol gods and, pagan deities like the European tried. These are actually principles in the creation. And our brother Mustafa Gadala touches on this in the Egyptian cosmology. Brother did a grand job on this right here when he went into that particular teaching. I'm trying to pull the work out, and I'll just give you a read out of this particular demonstration, the Egyptian cosmology. Okay, I'm gonna give you a little portion on the Neteru that he have, and I did some gematria up there on that too. You can see as I went into it. The brother was speaking here. He be getting on them. He get on them European with the way they demonstrate. It's a powerful measure. Here it is, right here. This is in the standards and terminology. He was given, the proper way of what should be said and why, given the reason why he say what he say. But he said the ancient Egyptian word neter and its feminine form netert have been wrongly and possibly intentionally translated as God and goddesses. It says by most and almost all academians, Neteru, the plural of Neter and Netert, are the divine principles and functions of the one supreme God. So this is what we have to have in mind, when we say this. And he was saying, he said, we will be using mostly the commonly recognized words for the English speaking people to identify with Neter and the Turk god and goddess or the pharaoh of the city, followed by other variations of such a term. And he said it should be noted that the real name of the deities, gods and goddesses, were kept secret so as to guard the cosmic power of the deity. The Neteru were referred to by epithets that describe particular qualities, attributes, and aspects of their roles. Such applies to all common terms such as Isis, Osiris, Amun-Re, Horus, etc. You know what I mean? So that's what we have to know. These are principles when we talk about the Neteru. Not what a European try to say that these are, again, some old pagan deities out there. You know what I mean? So the brother cover a lot in this book. The Egyptian cosmology, he really get into it. And he quote a lot of sources in here, dealing with the multiplicity of the deities. He talk about the unity, of comprising, putting together the many, the diverse entities, the one who is all, and how the creative principle became recognized as the Neteru, are the gods and goddesses whose actions and interactions in turn created the universe. So, this is powerful when we go into that aspect there and you understand that. And another measure here, when you talk about the Neteru, he said, Neteru, the divine energies. We just saw when the master of the universe came into existence, the whole creation came into existence because the complete one contains the all. The creation, or the cycle of creation, is caused and manipulated, maintained, it says, by divine forces and energies. It says these energies, like the perpetual cycle of creation, go through a process of transformation from birth, life, aging, dying, death to rebirth. We as human beings have similar life forces that change throughout our lifetime. Our human bodies consist of numerous cycles that govern our life existence. All forces die out when we die out. The Egyptians called these divine forces Neteru. The main theme of the universe is its cyclical nature. The Neteru are forces of nature which make the world go round, so to speak. To simply call them gods and goddesses gives a false impression. The divine energy that manifests itself in creation cycles is defined by the constituent energy aspects, which were called Neteru by the ancient Egyptians in order for creation to exist and be maintained. This divine energy must be thought of in terms of male and female principles. Therefore, ancient Egyptians expressed the cosmic energy forces in the terms of Netert, female principle, and Neter, male principle. And it says the Egyptian word Neter, a nature, means a power that is able to generate life and to maintain when it generated. It says as a part, all parts of creation go through the cycle of birth, life, and death and rebirth, so do the driving energies during the stages of this cycle. It is therefore that the ancient Egyptian Neteru, being divine energies, went and continue to go through the same cycle of birth, growth, death, and renewal. Such understanding was common to all, noted by Plutarch. The multitude of forces of nature known as Neteru are born or created, subject to continuous changes, age and die, and are reborn. We can give example of the caterpillar that is born and lives and builds its own cocoon where it dies, or better yet, transforms into a butterfly, which lays eggs, and on and on. What we have here is the cyclical transformation from one form state of energy to another. Another example is the water cycle, the water that evaporates, forming clouds that rain back to the earth. It is an orderly cyclical transformation of energies in various forms. When you think of Neteru, not as gods and goddesses, but as cosmic energy forces, one can see the ancient Egyptian system as a brilliant representation of the universe. Philosophically, This cyclical natural transformation is similar to our saying. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So he says in scientific circles, it is known as the natural law of conservation of energy, which is one of Einstein's principles, right? Which is described as the principle that energy is never consumed, but only changes form. And the total energy in physical systems such as the universe cannot be increased or diminished. In other words, it can't be created nor destroyed. So that's the infinity of the concept through the cycles of Neteru. So now that you have this knowledge, and when we go into this demonstration here, and you see in translations such as Wallace Budge's demonstration, you get a title, Neteru as gods and male deities and so forth and so on. You see that he didn't have all the truth in. Concept was all right, but it wasn't the full context of what was being demonstrated. See here, nether, the word, in the general use, the text of all periods for God and God here as well. Netre, a netri, which is to be or to become divine, to deify, more divine than divine ones, a divine God, divine youth, divine power, divine one. So, these words deal with the divinity, that is basically manifesting, itself in the universe and creation. So when you look at elements that are referred to as the atom, are the quarks and the protons and the neutrons and electrons, all of these would have represented ancient principles, that are demonstrated in the Kemetic model of creation. So instead of looking at Shu and Tefnut, and Geb as gods and deities, you look at them as principles that pervade in the creation, and you have a better understanding. And you don't become confused and like, oh, they were worshiping many gods by taking that Eurocentric narrative. So, I was looking at the word Adon, which is the root of the word Eden. And I did the gematria here. Remember, the mathematics never lie. So we know A is 1, the D is 4, N is 14. You add them up, you get 19. 9 and 1, that's 10. Bring the 10 together, isolate it from the 0, the 1 from the 0, you get 1. And that's the other A. So that's where I have, ADNA. You see? ADNA. And so as I began to do my research, I came across amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology. This is the type of science, empowers that, is exercised by the Elohim, divine nanotechnology. So, this is all dealing with gematria, how I'm coming up with this stuff, looking at the garden. So in other words, we find out that the true garden is within you. The true fruits of spirit and divinity come through you, your DNA. You see? So that's why you see DNA, divine netter, Atum. Atum is the first to emerge from the waters in ancient Kemet and form the mound. Then it says divinity of natures, which is atom, right? DNA. Then divine nature of all. I just created these different acronyms to bring light to my expression here, family. That's all. So especially when you talk about amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology, study that. It get deeper. You know what I mean? And then adenine. This is the one thing that distinguishes us from apes. And when you break these words down, you come up with that which is equivalent to the 7 Elohim or Elohim. This is what is working in us that don't work in the ape. The ape don't have this particular element working in it. Go look it up. That's how I was able to debunk that garbage when I had somebody talking about we come from apes. If we the same makeup, then they should have everything that we have. All 4 of those measures that make up the DNA. If they don't have them, the cytosine, the adenine, the guanine, and the thymine, if they ain't got all of it, then they can't be the same as you. They're another species. They even say dolphins are closer to us, but we don't look nothing like dolphins. Bananas is close to us too, but we don't look like bananas. So our people got to stop it. These people that talking about they scientifically literate, they the ones that's demonstrating, that pseudo demonstration. And it's one thing to be eloquent in your own ignorance, but another thing to be just ignorant and don't want to accept the truth. So anyway, all that being said, just like I spoke of a few minutes ago, we should view these modern elements, if we compare them to the activity, of certain things in the scientific model in the modern time, we can see the relation. So if netter, would be an expression working at that special level, then that netter in ancient Kemet would be equivalent to what take place in the realm of the string theory, because you're dealing with quantum physics when you go to dealing with them quarks. You know what I mean? You have a neutron that manifests out of that, the gluons and so forth and so on, and it builds itself all the way up into, a mass of matter. But your next measure with the neutron, and everything there dealing with the Neteru as well. Now, you see, you have the new. All of this is in the new, or the darkness of the universe, the cosmology. These elements, we just showed you the model. And then what manifests after that is the atom. And this is Autumn is in ancient Kemet. You see what I'm saying? So now you don't see these things as gods, and pagan deities. You see them as elements. You see, this was demonstrated. So I'm showing you in Kemet, they was already demonstrating a scientific model, but our people don't understand it because they've been accepting the European interpretation, this gods and goddesses concept. Nothing wrong with that because we use it now, we apply it to us. But what I'm saying is that they took you away from understanding that no, the nature is principle. Neteru are principles. Nu are principles. And I'm showing you, according to my research, how these things are unfolding. So out of the new, comes Autumn. And then Autumn, out of that, you have Autumn Ra. This is molecule action here, right? And then after that formation, matter, Ma'ati Ra. So matter naturally has a duality. You see, it has a high point and a low point in it, right? If it manifests, if it's physical. So Ma'ati Ra means that there is order of truth and right in every element, principle element, so to speak, that will come into creation to create matter. That's why in us we have an orderly makeup, Ma'ati Ra. You see, not only the order of Ma'at, but the light of Ra, which is the spirit. You see, this is what I'm getting at. I'm saying that our ancestors, what they were speaking of, they wasn't speaking of no bunch of pagan deities. This was their scientific model. I'm just showing you in comparison with the modern time so you would get it. We can go even deeper and talk about the matter and deal with the matriarch or the mitochondria, what they like to call mitochondria, which deals with DNA and so forth. But that's a whole nother measure. We're going to get, man, I'm telling you, family, this thing is real serious here. We going to put this thing to rest, like I said, and we almost done too, family. Let me move on to my next slide. So now we should be able to understand what's being demonstrated here in Genesis 1. And we quoted this earlier. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form. Remember, we showed you the ground state. And void and darkness was upon the face of the deep. That's the new. Noon and Nunet that's spoken of in ancient Kemet. You see, darkness was upon the face of the deep. The word face is translated from the word Ain. You see, Ain, which means also eye. You see? But anyway, the face of the deep, the source, that's the supreme reality. If you ever seen what they call the Kabbalah or the Zohar, they talk about the Ein Sof and Ein Sof R. You know, all that's dealing with the source. But anyway, it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. You know, and so this is the reality of that in regards to dealing with all of those same elements that I just showed you. You see? Now, let's get into the breakdown of these things and what the true meaning of these words are, because we see it again, we quoting the same thing. That's King James Version. They got different versions, you know, the deep and the Spirit of God moving and so forth and so on. They all say spirit. But what is spirit? How is it that spirit, you know, moves upon the face of the water? We just showed you right here again. You see what I'm saying? The scientists call it the controlling unknown, unmoved mover, whatever name they want to give it, act like he don't exist. You know, by saying that it ain't God, but Einstein told you what time it was. So anyway, you know, that's where we go with that. Now, when we get here, we find out that the word spirit is translated from the word ruach, which is ruh in Arabic, you know, which also equates with hetero, you know, comedically, whether people know it or not. Ruh and Ra. Ruach, which is breath, wind, and spirit. And you see that breath, wind, and spirit is causing a halaxial or cyclical motion. That's sacred geometry right there, family. You know what I mean? So it says, this is the original word, a noun, feminine, ruach, or ruach, you know, breath, wind, spirit, the exhausted concordance. It goes also in the unused word definition, breath, wind, spirit. Anger, it means to blast. Breath, breathless. Cool, courage. This is what it's telling you in spirit. Exposed, grief, heart, inspired, mind, motives, you know, quick-tempered, side, spirits, strength, temper, thoughts, trustworthy, winds, wrath. So we can see all of the same type of spirits that we express when it comes to dealing with spirit. We express happiness, courage, all that. So we had a potential, all that in us, you know, to exert those same things when it comes to spirit. But this is the same word that's used. It's actually waru, you know, but here it is again. That's 7307. And also the number here, 7307, if you were to go in the Strong's exhausted concordance. Another definition, air, anger, blast, breath, cool, courage, mind, quarter. It says from ruach, wind, which is resemblance, breath, a sensible or even violent exhalation. You know, figuratively, life, angel, unsubstantially, by extension, a region of the sky, by resemblance of spirit, but only of rational being. You know, so all this is dealing with some form of intelligence, because only intelligent beings express these type, you know, of characteristics, so to speak, including expression and functions, air, anger, blast, breath, cool, courage, mind, quarter, side, spirit, tempest, vein, whirlwind, as you can see right here. You know, that's going right back to that same motion. You see what I'm saying? What you think being stirred up in the universe, in that in the noon of, you know, the universe, in that cosmic Nile? Huh? Family, it don't get no plainer than this right here now. You know, it don't get no plainer than this. I'm showing you comedically and biblically, you know, a scientific model, so to speak, you know, from a scriptural standpoint. So here's Genesis 1:3 right here, right? Let there be light, and there was light. Right? Let there be light. This is no matter where you go in all these different versions. Then you had it here. Let there be lights. Genesis 1:3, Genesis 1:14. You know, dealing with the expanse in the firmament, expanse in the heavens. You know, so there's one light that didn't have anything to do with a sun or the moon. These lights came as a representation of the sun and the moon. on the fourth day, according to the book of Genesis. This was on the first day. So what light this was? This was the light of divinity manifesting itself from the darkness of the new. This was the rule. This was the spirit. And that's why even in the models of the universe, you're going to see the scientific model dealing with matter, and dark energy and dark matter and so forth and so on. You're going to see that light manifested, out of that darkness. But anyway, when we come here to Strong's exhausted concordance, it goes into another point. This is 216, which means bright, clear day, lightning, morning sun. This is from or illumination, because that's the word that was actually used, when it said, let there be light, a concrete luminary in every sense, lightning, happiness, bright, clear, light, day, morning. Then it says sun here. Although this was not the physical sun, because the physical sun didn't come into existence on the first day. It came into existence on the fourth day. So this is the spiritual sun, divine light, the presence of the very creator, the luminary himself, so to speak, which is also going back to the root word ma'or, which is here. You see? Ma'ore, which is also an equivalent word in ancient Egyptian, which is Mar, which was actually a name of Amen-Ra, or Amen. He was known as Mar, M-A-U-R. It's M-A-O-R. O is interchangeable with U. So it ain't strange that Amen-Ra represented the hidden light that became manifest. And now when you go into the Hebrew, in Strong's 3974, Ma'or, you find the bright light. You see? And it goes into a luminous body, a luminary. You know what I mean? Light beings, family. This go back to what I was speaking of when I was speaking of, the existence, of flesh divine, beings that come forth from stardust, our original evolution. And even in the physical body, we inherited some of that, but we're talking about literal light beings, celestial beings. This is proven that we come from this same makeup, family, right? So here it is again, same thing, Mar, luminary, a luminary, light, a luminary. Here is a word, abak, which is another word that's used. And this word was used actually dealing with the dust that it speaks of, in the book of Genesis. This is one of the words, because it used different words for dust throughout the book. Abak is one of them, but it means light particles, small dust and powder. So this would represent, stardust. This wouldn't be talking about regular earth right here. You see what I'm saying? This is talking about stardust, light particles. But then they have another word that actually refers to earth dust. So when we come to the model here that they gave showing dark energy and dark matter in the universe, notice it's 73%. The universe consists of 73% dark energy, 23% dark matter. Now, they're going to give different numbers too, because I got a couple of more models. They're a little off or whatever in the way that they demonstrate them based on who calculated. But anyway, dark energy, dark matter, all of these things are outside of us. This is what we come into play at right here in this 4.6. This is all we consist of. And then the light, see the neutrinos. You know what I mean? So the light that manifested out of that darkness is the same thing that I was just reading about a few minutes ago. I'm showing you the scientific model. I just read you, the model from the spiritual, from the book. Let there be light. So the light manifested from the darkness. We was in the midst. We were the light beings that manifested out of the darkness. Autumn came forth, and then everything as light was made manifest according to the ancient Kemetic cosmology. You see what I'm saying? So dark energy, dark matter, all of that is in the cosmos. And this is what has manifested out of the cosmos, the light in the atomic matter and the trios. And we can see that nature is present. That's us. That represent the light beings. This is what caused the formation again of your galaxies and your stars and Everything that you see out there. So we took part in our own creation, whether we know it or not. In the Moorish Holy Quran, they talk about this as us being on the level of what we call protoplasm. Protoplasm mean the first life form. And so out of that protoplasm being the first life form or first original man, this is dealing with a man that is not physical in the sense that I am and you are now, but in our physical state as we existed on the atomic level, as stardust, as light beings. So we came on a pilgrimage into this creation through them 7 days that they talk about in the Piscean records. You feel me? So here's another model. They say 74% and 22% dark matter. If you notice, and then you got your 4% in atoms. That's a small percentage out of everything. Even though the universe is in us, we are encapsulated. But the universe, as obviously, is way greater than, this little body here, because we're going to return back to that anyway. But anyway, if you notice what is created here, it looks like a pyramid, don't it? That's being manifested here. And if you look at it, it make me think about the Ben. It's another model here demonstrating the same thing. Like a pyramid, make me think about, Autumn coming up, rising up in the darkness of the new, like it speaks of in Kemet, and this dealing with a manifestation of creation. And this is another model, just a breakdown of the universe, the same dark energy, 25% dark matter and 4% atoms. Somebody put this together. We give honors to it. Grand model of expression dealing with matter and energy. So then we quote a measure coming from the Kemetic text: salutations to thee, Atum, salutations to thee, he who comes into being by himself. Thou art high in this thy name, high mound, and thou comest into being in this thy name, Kepri, becoming one. So Kepri, is synonymous with darkness, and I've seen some of our scholars equate Kepri as relating to melanin, and there is melanin within the universe. So all of that came with us when we came into the manifest. This is the true macrocosmic temple of perfected man. You see? And we are the microcosmic temple of perfection. So there's the grand man and there's man. There's Adam Kadman, there's Adam Harishun. There's spirit man, there's physical man. You see, that's what we're getting at. And we all came into existence out of this. Even our brother Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Theology of Time, in most of his books, Our Savior Has Arrived, he talk about the atom coming into being, spinning on its own timetable, being one, and then others adding on to him. And this is what made him come to the number 10 and begin to expand and grow, and the brothers say it was self-created. We were self-created, we can see the truth of that, and we can tell that that brother has studied some of the Kemetic teachings by making those statements dealing with that atom coming out of darkness, so that's a powerful measure as well. So going further on here, in confirmation of everything that I said thus far, our good brother Neil deGrasse Tyson made this statement. He said the atoms of our bodies are traceable to stars that manufactured them in their cores and exploded. These enrich ingredients across our galaxy billions of years ago. For this reason, we are biologically connected to every other living thing in the world. We are chemically connected to all molecules on Earth. And we are all atomically connected to all atoms in the universe. We are not figuratively, but literally stardust. See what I'm saying? So I done gave you my breakdown on it. I'm giving you people that are actual scientists, respected scientists, and what they have stated about these things. And this is just using that to add on to what I'm already demonstrating, but it makes it plainer for those who want to receive what it is that I'm giving to them. Let me make sure ain't nobody trying to get in this demonstration. So, yeah, ain't nobody bringing it like this, family. And that's why a lot of them fear me. They want to silence me. Most of them, they don't want me to reveal this to y'all. They want to silence me. And they got a lot of the people fooled, trying to make them believe I don't know what I'm talking about. But they be watching these videos too. They done seen how I get down. That's why they don't want to go into a dialogue with me on these things. And they run. And all I'm trying to do is show the oneness, but then they try to attack the oneness that I'm trying to bring to the people. This whole class here is really trying to show our people that we are one. So there's no need for the scientific community to be arguing with the religious community. There's no need for the religious community to argue with the scientific. That's what I'm about. That's what all my class is about teaching. But you'll have somebody that come up and try to attack what's being demonstrated, to throw a monkey wrench in it and confuse the masses and start hollering pseudo, pseudo, pseudo. And we already exposed that word pseudo. Pseudo is a derogatory term, very disrespectful term. So our people need to cut that out of their convo. Because you calling somebody a liar, a false prophet and all that right there, but you're not proving them wrong. Just because you disagree with somebody and because you have a cultic following and they're going to listen to everything you say just because you say it and they agree with you, that don't make me wrong because they agree with you. That just make them naive enough to follow that and not do the research into what I'm saying. And they content with that. You see, and that's what's destroying our community. That's what's tearing our community apart right now. So let me keep going here and get this demonstration and close it out. So here's another word dealing with actually the wheel or rolling, which is 1534, and actually was connected to one of the words that's dealing with dust, and that's why I added that in here. But it says heaven, a rolling thing, wheel by reduplication, which is galgal, a gagal, which is by analogy a whirlwind, also dust world in heaven, and a rolling wheel. If you hear about Ezekiel's wheel or the chariots of fire that were wheels within the wheel, once you understand, the same thing that I'm showing you, as this relates to the dust, the dust, the stardust, if you can even go into the Old Testament, see that's that spawning of the wheel right there. But you can even go again into the Old Testament and see where God, according to the Old Testament, when he came to the people, he covered himself in darkness. You see? He covered himself in darkness. He was cosmically melanated a couple of places in the Bible, according to their translation anyway. So anyway, here's some more definitions. Genesis 2:7, which is another definition, apar, which is of dust from the ground. I was talking about that earlier too. Now this goes into another measure. What? The ground state. Also here, if you go to Proverbs 8:26, the first particles of the earth or particles of the world are being mentioned here. And I quote that all the time because that's where it actually mentioned Kadmon at, Kadam. This is where your Kadmon at, when it said, God possessed me at the beginning. Before anything was created, I was there. You know what I mean? This is coming from that particular place. Before, anything was created, I was present. One saying they were with the supreme reality since the time of Amen-Renef. Yeah, since the time before the Planck epic. But anyway, Wa'apir is another word in connection to Apir, which is actually in Deuteronomy 28:24, Pata, a dust from heaven. What you mean when you say dust from heaven, family? You going into dealing with stardust. Come on, man. They be playing. The first dust of the world. That's still dealing with the stardust. It's the same thing. Apparot. That's the same thing in Proverbs 8:26. You know, saying, this is what one was saying. I was in existence, even before the highest part of the dust of the world came into being, in my spirit state, before I manifested, through stardust, so to speak. So this is a pattern again. Now they're speaking of earth dust here. So this word is used for both stardust and earth dust. Dry earth dust, dirt, dusty, rubble. We already know loose earth. We know that's talking about dirt from the earth. When you talking about dust from heaven, that's stardust. You see, here's another one here, kadak, which actually is another word for the word dust in Isaiah 40, ayat 15, verse 15. And this actually speaks of the atom, as well. It says very little thing here, but in certain translations, it actually say, a little atom. It mentions the word atom in some translations. So it says very little thing here. So atoms are small. They are very little things. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull this up real quick. Let's see. Let's see real quick. And it's based on, like I say, whatever translations you go in, trying to find the actual translation. You got a couple of different translations up here. Uh-oh. It took me straight to it. I'm going to do it like this right here. Because this is one that's giving you very little thing. I just want to give you the other one and show you they actually use the word atom in these translations. See that one say fine dust right there. And all you can do too, you can do it this way as well. They don't use it. I will say that they don't use it often. Trying to find that one. I just had it open too. That's the Greek word. That's the English version right there, atomos. I'm gonna get into that in a minute. Oh, that's why it ain't there. Let's see. Where is it at? Is it this one here? Not that one. I just had it open too earlier. Let me see. Let's see right here. Okay. Description. There you go. Yeah, it's the same one right there. There it is. But it's this particular version here. Same scripture, but see it what it says, behold, he takes up the isles as an atom, meaning that, isles that we see as great in stature is but an atom to the creator. Behold, the nations are esteemed as a drop of the bucket, as fine in the dust on the scales. Behold, he take up the isles as an atom. And so that same word that I was just showing you, in my slide, dealing with the same thing, they said very little thing here. You see? And so that was their choice of translation. But they are referring to, again, the atom. So Here's another one. Doc is also another word. That means thin, small, fine, finely ground out. Dwarf. This makes me think about dwarf star, stardust from the dwarf star. Here's another one here with Isaiah, which is actually Ukak Shehak. And this is dealing with the same thing when you get into the word itself. The word they used here, is that particular word. And so then we have Shakak here, right? Shakak in Strong in 7834 is connected to this same word here, right? Shakak. Okay, Shakak. It says a cloud, small dust, heaven, sky form Shakak, a powder, as beaten small by analogy, a thin vapor by extension, the firmament, cloud, small dust, heaven, sky. So we know this again is dealing with star dust. This is the atomic, expression. Now, in our closing, this is from the beloved brother, may he rise in power, G.M. James. He went into a description of the atom, and listen to what he said. After everything that I just put up here already, he said the identity between the Egyptian sun god Atum and Atom and the atom of modern science. There are two things which I desire to point out in connection with the relationship between Atum, it says Atom, the Egyptian sun god, and the atom of modern science. These things are, one, the similarity of attributes and the similarity of names. The Egyptian god Atum or Atum means self-created. Remember I was telling y'all that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about the self-created atom coming out of darkness. Where you think he got that teaching from? Kemet. Everything and nothing, a combination of positive and negative principles. See? All inclusiveness and emptiness, a demerge, possessing creative powers, the creator son, intellectual adventure of the ancient man, Frankfurt's kingship of the gods. This was him quoting his source. But then it goes on, he says, Atum, and Adam means, it says, the all and not yet being. Frankfurt's kinship of the gods again. As a god, Atum or Atom represents the principles of opposites. Remember I was talking about them principles? Atom as the substratum of matter, according to Greek philosophy, is defined by Democritus as movement of that which is to own and within that which is not. Movement. So the atom represents movement. Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about time being started based on emotion in his particular theology of time. That's truth. Remember, I told you time represents the measurement of a distance from one point to another. It says it therefore represents the principle of opposites and shows the identity between the Egyptian sun god and the substratum of matter. So automatically by this matter coming into existence, there will be duality. So that's the opposite, the principle of opposites that's being referred to. The atom is defined as the full and void being and non-being. It says these definitions coincide with everything and nothing and the all-inclusiveness and emptiness of the Egyptian sun god. Okay, here's another portion from our brother. The similarity name, it says similarity of the name shared by the Egyptian sun god and the atom of science. Now, with reference to the similarity of these two names, the first thing we should bear in mind is the fact that they both possess identical attributes, as has been already pointed out in section 1, and consequently we are compelled to conclude that the atom of science is identical name of the Egyptian sun god, the most ancient of the gods, except Ptah, who was present with Atom at creation. It says the second thing we should bear in mind is the fact that the name of the god Atom, sometimes spelled Atum, belongs to the cosmology of the Memphite theology, which is known as Munafa. That's the real Kemetic name. Memphis is known as Munafa. That's what Terhudi was said to be born. But anyway, at least one of the Terhudis, because there were actually a few of them. But it says whose date goes back to 4000 BC, when the Greeks were not even known. Consequently, we are compelled to conclude that the Greeks obtained both the original name and the attributes of the sun god Atum from the Egyptians. 4000 BC. Huh? Man, they better stop playing. Now let's see what the Greeks got to say. Atomos, the strong concordance, right? Even though we know that the term Greek is something that they made up. But anyway, atoms means uncut, indivisible, a moment of time. Just like the brother just said, right? Same thing here being reiterated. We ain't got to be redundant about it. Same thing down here saying the same. Split second, indivisible, that's same thing. It goes into reiterating the same thing here too. The atom of time and so forth and so on. A moment of time. So it's powerful, family. Now that we done with the biblical aspect of it, we showed you many Kemetic connections to this atom. Let's go into the Quran, because it get deep when we go into the Quran and we go to talk about this atom. It says the disbelievers say the hour would never come to us. Say, O prophet, yes, by my Lord, the knower of the unseen, it will certainly come to you. Not even an atom's weight is hidden from him in the heavens or the earth, nor anything smaller or larger than that, but is written in perfect record. It ain't speaking of just the atom here, it's talking about the atom's weight. So the Quran has acknowledged the weight of the atom. Do you know what that's referring to, family, when we talk about the weight of atoms? Atoms actually have weight. Watch this. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. You got atomic weight and you got atomic mass. And you see that when you go into a periodical table. And for those who don't know, anytime you're dealing with geometry, you always use the atomic mass. See, this is your atomic mass right here. You don't even have to count what's behind the decimal. The first number is always dealing with your atomic mass. And this is actually dealing with how many of the atoms are in it, like the 1, 2, the 3, and the 4, and the 24. But mass is dealing with weight. So that's how you are actually weighing that demonstration. So that's what's being referred to right here. Again, as I just showed you all, the Quran in translation, and I'm going to go into the word that it refers to as well, just like I did in the other scripture. Here's another measure in Yusuf Ali, and that too was Surah 34, Ayat 3 again, right? So if we come here, and if you really look at it, we can see that these atoms that are being formed from quarks and, how they grow to form molecules and form matter. This is the same way words are formed, through the expression of alphabets, and numerical values are pulled out of this demonstration. So there's a close connection between, molecules and atoms and, words and numbers, whether we know it or not. So anyway, it speaks here, it says, in whatever business thou mayest be, whatever portion thou mayest be reciting from the Quran, and whatever deed ye mankind may be doing, we are witnesses thereof, when ye are deeply engrossed therein. Nor is hidden from thy Lord so much as the weight of an atom on earth or in heaven. And not the least and not the greatest of these things, but are recorded in a clear record. See, I talk about that book of creation all the time. You know what I mean? But it say you can't hide nothing, you know, nothing in the form of the weight of an atom in the heavens or the earth can't be hid from the supreme reality. That makes sense, especially if the God particle is ever present, omnipresent through you. Because this body is also a data keeper. When you go into the earth, the data going with you, but also, that's being deposited, the physical part of you going, but the spiritual part of what people like to call soul or consciousness, that goes back into the creation. That becomes back a part, of what it came from. So that's why they say, well, matter can't be destroyed, created, nor destroyed. It's a cycle. Because even when your body decomposes and become gases, those gases seep back up through the earth, and you coming up out of there, even in that form. This is all dealing with science, family. We making it plain. Surah 34, ayat 22, it says, say, call upon other gods, whom ye fancy besides Allah. They have no power, not the weight of an atom in the heavens or on the earth, nor a sort of share they have therein, nor is any of them a helper to Allah. That's why we tell you, you don't look at the ancient principles of Kemet as gods and goddesses. You look at them as principles, and attributes of the creation. You see? This was the teaching of Kemet before the Quran started talking about monotheism. We just inherited the teaching. And it's natural because if Ishmael's mother was Egyptian, then of course, they're going to inherit some of that. So in closing, this is the word that's used in the Quran for the word as it relates to atom. But there are many breakdowns to this word atom. The root is darara, right? It occurs 38 times in the Quran in 3 derived forms. Look it up and check it out yourself. 4 times is the noun duriyat. You see duriyat and darat. This is atom, offspring, children, descendants, etc. The Arabic word for that, right? So it ain't strange. Notice how they were saying that atom and ta existed together. When you go into Tara, I showed our family this before. You know what the word dara actually means: Adam, seed, offspring, progeny, children. The Hebrew equivalent, or Aramaic, the seed, semen, offspring, descendants, posterity, children. This is the effect. This is the cause. Tara, Dara, Zara. He who commenced creation in the being as the giver of life. I done showed y'all this before. Y'all seen this. Now you understand. When we go back and revisit this stuff, it becomes clear to you now. Now you see the connection of the DNA, and, the creator, us being one with the creator, Kemetically, biblically, and from a Quranic standpoint. We came on a sacred pilgrimage into this world that we call life. And these are all your elements that you made of. Nitrogen, oxygen, carbon. See? There you go. You made all of that. And notice all your elements that you consist of. Each one of them correspond with that which makes up DNA. And it ain't strange when you put, the hydrogen, the nitrogen, the oxygen, and the carbon together. This is the Kemetic word for Hanak, which becomes Enoch. So when they said that Enoch was taken up into the heavens, oh man, that's a powerful demonstration. What greater way to ascend? We call it, spirit man giving a soul to function upon the plane of soul and a body of flesh to function upon the plane made manifest. Why was he giving a soul to function upon the plane of soul? So you can climb that ladder that angels ascend and descend upon. All of this has to do with knowledge of self, family. Once you got that, can't nobody take that away from you. It's the Arabic version of Enoch too, Aknuk. Tehuti. Yes, sir. That's why when we deal with that ladder, and you see in the Piscean record when they were talking about descendants, look at what it says. And Jacob had a dream about a ladder that rested on the earth with its top reaching up to the heaven. And God's angels was going up and down the ladder, right? And at the top, the Lord was standing and saying, I am the Lord, the God, your father of Abraham, God of Isaac. Huh? You're a direct descendant of the Most High. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you shall, which you now lie. And your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. And you will spread out to the west and the east and the north and the south. And all the families of the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. Look, I am with you, and I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you, right? When Jacob woke up, he thought surely the Lord is in this place, inside of him. And I was unaware of it. He didn't know God was in himself. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. You the house of God. God is you, the temple of perfected man. And this is the gate of heaven. Genesis chapter 28. Come on, family. This is what you call scientific literacy right here through the scriptures. You can't get this nowhere else, not the way we bringing it. So once you get it like this right here and you see it, now when you go back to Kemet and deal with the Ennead and you compare that to Genesis, which I call this the Ennead manifest of Genesis, you have Nun and Nunet, which represented the primeval waters. That's the universe. That's the cosmos. And you have Hu and Huhet. This is space, infinity, and formlessness. The word was void without form. Remember, darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Hu and Huhet. Ku and Kuket. Right? Primordial darkness and darkness. Light separated from the darkness. This is Kemetic. I'm showing you the Kemetic teaching, but this is the same thing they tried to teach you in Genesis indirectly. It's all based off of the Kemetic teaching, but they don't want to tell you. Amun, Aminet, invisible and hidden. You heard me talk about that earlier. Now go through the days now. Day one, we already covered that. So what was really going on, day one, we say Allah. We know Allah and Ra are synonymous with each other. If you studied my materials by listening to the videos, we already showed you Allah is Ara. You see what I'm saying? He breathed forth the seven Elohim like the circle seven say. You see? And thus Tehuti, which represents divine mind, Ma'at, which represents truth and right, and Atum became manifest. This equals Shu. Shu is holy breath. You know, holy breath in root connection is Ish and Isha. These the Hebrew word that correspond with the Egyptian word, Shu. So the husbandman and the mother of virtues was made manifest here. Tehuti and Ma'at. You see, Atum becomes manifest, and in this manifestation, you know, come forth the elements air, water, fire, earth, and ether. That's what follows. How does the air come forth? After day one in the book of Genesis, day two, it talks about, you know, the what you call it, the firmaments, you know, where you're dealing with the protoplast, the Atum, the Shu, and Tefnut. That's the air. You know, then it talk about the waters. That's day three. That's Seb in ancient Kemet, or Geb, or Nut in water. You see, then you have day four, which is of the plant in Kemet. You know, look it up in the book of Genesis, and it manifests in the same order. That's why I say we came on a pilgrimage through these 7 days. And that represents the day four, Ra, 5, because the sun came into being, you see, on this particular day, according to the Piscean record. So that's the fire, that's the element. You know, then day 5, that same element of fire was inherited by Apep. Apep is the serpent that was the enemy of Ra. This come through the realm of the beast. You know, this is when the animals come in to manifest, according to Genesis, right? But Apep, you know, being the serpent, was the enemy of Ra. We're not talking about the Uraeus or the cobra. And so this is earth and fire. That's why in the Quran, when Iblis was told to bow down, to Adam, he said, no, you created me from fire and him from clay. I ain't bowing down to him. That's the beast nature. Why do you think when we get upset? I know in the South they had a term, man, I'm 38 hot when they get mad. I'm hot with you. All that comes dealing with that bestiality, family. You see? That's that upside down 5. The inverted 5 point. The opposite of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So anyway, day 6 of man, this is dealing with carnal man and woman. So I have Set and Nephthys here, because Set opposed Esau. Nephthys was his wife. This would be your equivalent of Adam and Eve right here. Ish and Isha represent our spiritual mother. Now, when we get down here to the, and that's earth, the element there. But when we get down here to the 7th day, you notice I have angel and cherubim. These are referred to the ether planes in our Moorish Holy Quran. That's why I have them in this order. The earth, plant, beast, man, cherubim, seraphim, so forth, protoplasm, all of that. So this is Amen, angel and cherubim, flesh divine. This actually connects, to this particular measure. If you ever seen a serpent, a sign of the serpent consuming its tail, that's a symbol of unity. When you deal with the aspect of the serpent from the cosmic aspect. But when you get into the physical body and you talk about that lower self, that's a different type of serpent. Or you talk about the Uraeus coming forth from the forehead, that's what they call the Kundalini. That's the rise of consciousness, awakening in one. So you have to know how to distinguish, these things. So anyway, flesh divine represents the first psychophysical man, aka Mar, the light being, the high priest of Anu, come through this special lineage. This is dealing with ether. Ether, or the ethers of the native plane, is what unite all as one. That's how they all become one. So this is all saw and all set, spirit man and spirit woman, which are actually tied, directly to our spiritual Ish and Isha, our spiritual mother and father, that they use the terminology in the Hebrew or the Aramaic terminology. So once you understand all of this, and we've been talking about the term Autumn Re, Autumn Ra, you understand that Atamari, for example, if you look this word up, go to Google Books, Atamari is the spirit of a living man that has gone out of him during sleep and been seen by one, right? But this word occurs in one dialect. Is composed of Ata, which is the soul, and Mari, which means to live. So when you say the breath of life was breathed into man and he became a living soul, right here, Atamari, Autumra, Autumre. See what I'm saying? That's autumn that came out of the new in the noon, in the beginning. So this is equivalent to Genesis 2, verse 7, which we spoke of it earlier. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Then say he became a living body, he became a living soul. So this represents Shu. Shu is the holy breath. Shu is the holy breath that went into, man, that he become a living soul, as they like to say. And this is my last slide here, just saying that they're, about, 7 quadrants. Man, it's just millions and billions and trillions of atoms in your body. All are billions of years old, family. Again, we're dealing with the same elements. At the deepest level, you are the universe in human form. So that being said, family, like I said, our subject matter was the atom of scriptures, science or pseudo science fiction. I just put the information out there. It don't get no plainer than the way I put it out there. And anybody tell you that it don't demonstrate no science in the Bible, Quran, or the ancient Egyptian teachings, they delusional and they believe what they want to believe. So that being said, family, let me check and see who we still got present as we close this demonstration out. I'm gonna drop this link in here real quick. If anybody want to come in here, they can come in here real quick, and give some insight, just in case somebody want to give some insight right here. I want to give honors to everybody who showed up. And oh yeah, this, you gotta see this one, Sister Niambi. This one here, powerful, sis. This was real powerful. And you gonna love it. Those who already got a chance to and been here for a minute, we give honors to you. We see us a few here. We want to give honors to the brother Gamma Bay, Yakub Hamed Gamma Bay, Sister Sina Renee. Want to give honor to Sister Diane Carter Bay. All of y'all dealing with this late night library session, so to speak, of archives and wisdom. Honors to your Sister Niambi. And so this is very powerful. You can use this information, share it, subscribe. If you haven't, if you're looking at me right now with this information we presented, and the best is yet to come, family. I'm like the well of Zim. I never run dry. I'm always come with more, and I ain't even scratched the surface yet. That's what a lot of them guys that be trying to challenge me don't know. Like this, I ain't even scratched the surface yet on what I'm trying to give our people. But we just got to be able to give it in the form to where it can be unhindered, and can't nobody muddy up what I'm trying to deliver to the people. And that's what we're trying to get. And they'll get it soon enough. But I want to give honors to all of the faithful and the Lord, my brothers and my sisters on here, for being patient with me and hearing this message out. So if you would love, definitely look at the playback, in the hours to come. So that being said, family, I just want to say gratitude, peace, love, and law at all costs. And Islamism without the schism. And we're going to keep this truth coming. So y'all keep following these measures, because like I said, I got a lot more to come. Everything I do is tied into every other measure. Every measure that I demonstrate, if you go back and look at them, I'm purposely doing these things to where they tie into each other. I ain't just up here talking. It's a method to what seems to be madness. It's very organized with what we present. So that's my drawing right there. And I do got to do this here though on the reading on the way out, because this is also a part of it. It's just a short read from the book that's floating across the bottom of the screen. So if you want this book, it's called The Supreme Sign. So let me read this little portion from it. Honors again to Betty Uziman Said Nursi for this work, because he has fought Darwinism, and his works is still on the manifest. Like I said, they tried to poison this man 19 times. He told his followers they wasn't going to be able to kill him, though. He completed his work. So let's start it off. And we're going to read this to the family. And this is actually, the way he wrote this book is a traveler going on a journey. And he begins to question creation. He look at creation, he question creation, and the creation is actually talking back to him. That's how cold-blooded this man was with the pen. It's so poetic. But listen to what he said. He said, he quote Quran, it says, "There's no God but God, to whose necessary existence and unity points to the unanimity." It says, "of the saints in their manifest, well affirmed and attested in divinations of the truth." It says, "in wondrous deeds." Let me blow that up. Let me make sure our family. Okay, yeah, it is sharing. I want to make sure it's sharing. So it says, "Now a traveler through the world, aware that the most important and greatest of all human perfections, indeed the very source and origin of all such perfections, is the love of God that arises from the belief in God and the knowledge of God, wished with all of his powers, outer and inner, to advance still further in strengthening of his faith and development of his knowledge. He therefore raised his head and gazing at the heavens said to himself, the most precious thing in the universe is life. All things are made subordinate to life. The most precious of all living beings is the animate, and the most precious of the animate is the conscious. Each century, each year, the globe is engaged in emptying and refilling itself in order to augment this most precious substance. It follows then without doubt that the magnificent and ordinate heavens must have an appropriate people and inhabitants possessing life, spirit and consciousness. For events relating to sin and speaking with the angels, such as appearance of Gabriel, peace be upon him, in the presence of Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, and in the view of our companions, have been transmitted and related from the most ancient times. Would then that I could converse with the inhabitants of the heavens and learn their thoughts on this matter, for their words concerning the creator of the cosmos are the most important. So he talking about having a conversation with the cosmos, right? It says, as he was thinking to himself, he suddenly heard a heavenly voice. If you wish to meet us and hearken to our lesson, then know that before all others we have believed in the articles of faith brought by means of us to the prophets headed by the prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, who brought the Quran of miraculous exposition. Now, this is basically creation saying that if he wishes to meet it, creation, then hear the lesson and know that before all others, before anybody came into being, the cosmos themselves bore witness to all the truth that will be manifest. You got to remember, the cosmos is a book. All of those things that have manifested out of the cosmos were in the cosmos prior to their fully manifestation. So this is the book of creation. So anyway, he goes on and it states, it says, to all of the pure spirits from amongst us that have appeared before men have unanimously and without exception borne witness to the necessary existence, the unity, and the sacred attributes of the creator of this cosmos, right? And proclaim this with one accord. The affinity and mutual correspondence of these countless proclamations is a guide for you, as bright as the sun. Thus the traveler's light of faith shone and rose from the earth to the heavens. In brief allusion to the lesson learned by the traveler from the angels, we said in the 11th degree of the first station, there is no God but God, to whose necessary existence and unity points to the unanimity of the angels that appear to human gaze, and who speak to the elect among men with their mutually corresponding and conforming messages. Then that ardent, inquisitive traveler, having learned from the tongues of various realms of creation in the manifest realm, in their material and corporeal aspects, and from the utterance of their modes of being, desired to study and journey through the world of the unseen and the intermediate realm, and thus to investigate reality. There opened to him the gate of upright and luminous intellects, of sound illumined hearts, that are like the seed of man, who is the fruit of the universe, and despite their sight girth, it says, can expand virtually to embrace the whole of the cosmos. He looked and saw a series of human isthmuses, linking the realm of the unseen with that of the manifest, and the contacts between those two realms, the interchanges between them, insofar as they affect man, taking place at those points. Addressing his intellect and his heart, he said, "Come, the path leading to truth from these counterparts of yours is shorter. We should benefit by studying their qualities, natures, and colors concerning faith that we find here, not by listening to the lessons given by the tongues of disposition, as was previously the case." So, in other words, creation is telling him to learn from observing creation, learn from looking at the cosmos, learn from looking at everything that you see around you. Don't even worry about listening to the lectures that you hear from the tongues of human beings, but listen to the voice, that silent voice that speaks to you, from within you, that silent voice that's speaking to you from creation itself. This is powerful. Betty Uziman wasn't nothing to be played with, family. This is why my thoughts are so elevated, because these are the type of works that I was studying under that brother, Niketi. For 10 years, I studied under that brother. But anyway, it says, beginning his study, he saw that the belief and firm conviction concerning the divine unity that all luminous intellects possess, despite their varying capacities and differing, even opposing methods and outlooks, was the same, and that their steadfast and confident certainty and assurance was one. They had therefore to be relying on a single unchanging truth. Their roots were sunk in a profound truth and could not be plucked out. See, that's like me with all the stuff that I done come through knowledge-wise, studying this stuff. You can't shake my foundation. You can't pull me out of this. You see, because I see one truth when I'm reading. I don't see the division that everybody else see. That's the difference between me and most of the people that try to come against the unity that I'm trying to bring. And I bring that unity because I don't see the disunity. By virtue of one being disunited in the thought, let me know they hadn't studied, that much. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It's just we got to be willing to learn if somebody bring us something that we never heard, and not try to dismiss it and say, "Oh, that's pseudo, he lied." But anyway, it says their unanimity. It says concerning faith in this, the necessary existence and unity of God was an unbreakable and luminous chain, a brightly lit window opening onto the world of truth. He saw also the unanimous, assured, sublime unveilings. It says, and this is the last portion of it here, family, and witnessings of the pillars of belief enjoyed by all of those sound and luminous intellects, whose methods were various and outlooks divergent, corresponding to and agreed with each other on the matter of divine unity. All those luminous hearts turned and joined to the truth and manifesting it. In each small throne of dominical knowledge, a comprehensive mirror of God's eternal besoughtness, were like so many windows open onto the sun of truth. Taken together, they were like a supreme mirror, like an ocean reflecting the sun. And their agreement and unanimity concerning the necessary existence and unity of God was an unfailing and reliable, most perfect guide, most elevated preceptor. For it is no way possible or conceivable that a supposition other than the truth and untrue thought, it says, a false attribute should so consistently and decisively be able to deceive simultaneously so many sharp eyes. In other words, ain't no way in the world, with all this evidence that we see out here around us, ain't no way in the world you should be saying that it ain't no intelligent design or supreme mind behind this stuff. It says, or to induce illusion in them. Not even the foolish sophists who deny the cosmos will agree with the corrupt and dissipated intellect that held such a thing possible. All of this our traveler understood, and he said, together with his own intellect and heart, I have believed in God. You know what I mean? So it says, in brief allusion to the benefit derived from the upright intellects and luminous hearts by our traveler, for the knowledge of belief, we said in the 12th and 13th degrees of the first station, There is no God but God, whose necessary existence in unity points to the consensus of all upright intellects, illumined with congruent beliefs and corresponding convictions and certainties, despite differences in capacity and outlook. There also points to its necessity existence in unity and the agreement of all sound, luminous hearts with their mutually corresponding unveilings and their congruent witnessings, despite differences in the method and manner. You know what I mean? So it's powerful, family. It went on, on his journey, but that's a whole nother measure. It's going into another phase. But I wanted to add that because, Betty Userman did a good job in the Supreme Sign, because in that whole book, like I said, this traveler is going on a journey and he's questioning creation, and creation is speaking back to him, basically saying that, we are evident. I am the evidence. What you observing and what you questioning, I am the evidence of the existence of a supreme reality, of a supreme intellect, of a God, or whatever the case may be. But that God is not only in existence outside of you, he exists within you. And that's where we at with. That's the reality of the supreme being, family. That's what it was taught. That's what was taught in ancient Kemet. Even in the Bible, it said, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God that dwelleth within you." Even in the Quran, Allah said that he was going to breathe forth his Ruh Allah, into man. And when he did it, he told the angels to fall down in obeisance to him, prostrate. He was telling them to prostrate, before him, because he had placed himself in Adam. See, that's the reality of the truth right there. So with that, family, peace and love. It's all love, family. And that's right, Sister Niambi. It ain't no strange thoughts. Like we said, it ain't no strange thoughts. What it is when you speak the truth, and the truth is there. The truth is the only thing that changes not. No truth contradicts another truth. And so all this is confirmation, and that's why my enlightener, that named me Shaheed. That's one of the reasons he named me that. Because a lot of times he would be getting ready to prepare a sermon or a khutbah, and I would be speaking to him. He like, "Brother, you been looking at my notes?" And I hadn't seen his notes. And so he named me Shaheed. It means one who bear witness to the truth. And also one who becomes even one who would die for the truth. One, who brings truth and confirms the truth. And that's why I tell people, I be like, I don't read for information, I read for confirmation. But honors to your family is peace and love. We're going to let y'all get some shit out now. Gratitude to your family. The best is yet to come. Peace and love.